Okay everybody, welcome back. So it's time to continue where we left off. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab hold of the bird model and then assign that into the scene and have a look at the animation that's attached to it. So what I want you to do is make sure that the image target is expanded, and I want you to go into models, into the bird, and just navigate down through low poly into the source, and you can see the bird. Now if you click and drag the model and drop on top of the image target, the bird will appear in the center of the screen. Now it's a little bit small, so using the middle mouse button I'm just going to kind of navigate around and zoom in, and let's just have a little bit of a look at this bird. If I click on the y-axis, which is on the top, I can click and drag the bird up, and I think it's a little bit small compared to the actual environment that I've created. So I'm going to double its size, like so. Make sure the X, Y and Z are all the same, otherwise you're going to distort the bird. In fact, I'll make it slightly bigger, 2.2. There we go. We can always alter this later on. Now, as you can probably tell, it doesn't look like a duck. Well, we can always change that. So all we need to do is apply a new material. So if we click on bird and come up a level, you can see that there are two graphics here that have been imported. Now, if we click this one and drag and drop onto the bird, it will apply the texture. Make sure the bird's selected first, and then click and drag and drop. There we go. So all I did was I got the original texture and I opened it up in Photoshop by right clicking, revealing in Finder, and then I opened that up in Photoshop and I changed it to be something similar to a mallard duck, as this is the model that I found would be the most suitable, the fastest loading, and it already had an animation attached, which was kind of cool as well. So with a little bit of cosmetics altering in Photoshop, it kind of looks like the right kind of bird now. Now by all means, if you want to go crazy, you guys can open up this same graphic and change it into a parrot or a canary or whatever style bird you want. It's very simple to do and play away to your heart's content. Now this bird does have an animation attached to it. If we go inside the low poly folder, I'm in Assets, Models, Bird, so inside there and then into the source, you can see that this is the bird model. If you click this small symbol here, which kind of looks like a play button, then it will actually expand the model and we have an animation here. Now the problem is this bird asset is missing a controller. Now it does come bundled with a controller here, so I can just drag and drop that on there, but I want to explain what a controller is so that you guys understand the animation side. So we're going to create our very own custom one. What I want you to do is right click here and create an animator controller. Now I'm going to call mine bird fly. It doesn't really matter what you call it as long as you remember. And then what I want you to do is select the bird on the scene, and I want you to drag and drop that onto here where it says controller. And what that will do is that will give us access to the animator on the actual scene. Now my animator's down at the bottom. I'll just pull it up to the top for a second. There we go. Now this is what an empty animator looks like. So it has an entry state, which basically means as soon as I press play, what does the bird do? Well, at the minute, nothing. There's nothing attached to it. And what we need to do is we need to add an animation to this animator. Now, if you come down here, while this is expanded, we have access to this play button, and that's actually an animation. It's the bird flying. So if I click and drag that into the animator, it becomes orange. I can change its name to be called Fly Animation because that's what it is. And this, if I double click it, will show us the model here. And if I press play, then we can see how the bird is animated. So somebody has taken the time to rig this model together and create an animation. Now, the reason why I wanted to create our own animator rather than just simply dragging and dropping the existing one on is so that you guys can play with different models if you want, and you can assign different animations to those models once you actually understand how you can add animations to the animator. Now, in this particular case, this bird just has one animation, but on one of my other Udemy courses, which is the Discovering AR Gaming, then that is where I build a game where we have a one-on-one virtual fighting game, and obviously those models will have numerous animations which they will need to transition between. So by all means check out the video for that if you want to learn a little bit more about the animator. But for now, this is all we need to do as part of this course. So now we have a bird that when we press play will actually fly. And if it's orange, that means it's the default state. Now the only problem is it's going a little bit slow. So if you click once, we can change the speed. Now I'm going to change the speed to about 5 and press return, and we'll see how that affects the actual bird speed in a minute. Okay, so let's have a quick look what's next on the list. Right, we've attached a bird controller and a bird animation, and now we're going to attach a script and a box collider. Okay, so let's get hold of our bird. Now on the right hand side in the inspector, this is where we can attach a script, some code that will control the bird. Now we're going to add a script that will control the bird and make it look towards a certain target and fly towards that. Once it hits that target, the target will then respawn in a different location. The bird will then spin around, look at the new target's location and fly towards, hence giving the impression that the bird is actually flying around all over the scene and we have to then try and shoot it. The problem that we have is that we don't know where the new location will be for the new object to spawn, so the bird will fly around very erratically and make the game quite difficult for us to play, which is fantastic. It actually works in our favor to make it better gameplay. So what we need to do is click Add Component, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a script which I'm going to call Bird Controller. Okay, now create and add, and that will attach the default C# script to the bird. Okay, so here it is. It's appeared in the assets. Now we have a script. What we need to do is right click and create a folder, because we're going to keep things nice and neat and put all our scripts inside a script folder. Now the next thing that we're going to do is add something called a box collider to the bird. So make sure the bird's selected and back over to the inspector. I want you to add a new component and I want you to start typing in box collider. Now, if I zoom out slightly, we've suddenly got this huge box that appears above the bird. Obviously, it's a bit too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale the size down. So if I just put 0.2 across the board, there we go. That gives us something to work with at least. And now I can shrink it down manually from this point by clicking and dragging here. There we go. Now what this box does is it's an invisible box that will surround the bird, and it will allow the bird to collide with other objects that also have a box collider surrounding them. So for example, when the bird flies into this invisible target that we're going to randomly position in the world, then I want to detect a collision so that when the bird reaches the target, then the target will respawn in a new location and the bird will then fly towards that new location. So it needs a box collider to be able to enable the physics engine so that we can detect that collision and actually cause this kind of gameplay reaction. What we need to do though is we need to make sure that it kind of fits fairly well around the bird, and as you can see this one is still too big, so I'm just going to shrink it down a little bit. Let's have a look at the Y. There we go. Now I do want it to be a little bit bigger than the bird, to be honest, so that the bird never actually reaches the target. It just gets very close to the target. Now that's about right size-wise. Yep. All I need to do now is move the box collider up so it's surrounding the body of the bird. And that's done here on the Y-axis. So I can click and drag 0.01, 0.2, and maybe 0.22 or 0.022, sorry, or 0.24. There we go. That's pretty much perfect. So be careful when you're adding your box collider. Just have a good look around the bird and make sure that the bird is kind of in the center of the box. I mean, it doesn't matter about the tail end. That's not going to be have any impact on the gameplay. But I want the box to expand further than the head of the model, as when the bird flies in towards this target that we're going to place, I want the collision to be detected before the bird gets there. And the reason for that is so that we have time to move this target away. Otherwise, it will look like the bird flies into the target and then it will go past and it will spin around and try coming back, and you will have what looks like game lag, where the bird kind of flickers on the screen and goes forward and backwards over and over again. So it will give an impression like the game's actually gone wrong in some way. Okay, so that's perfect. Let's save the scene and I'll see you in the next video.